from Australia.
Yes.
We've got Matt from Australia calling in. Matt, what's your question?
Oh, are we going, Chris?
Yes.
Okay, great. Olivia, at the end of season one, we saw sort of Sloane in the newsroom enter this sort of, I guess, love pentagon with Don, Maggie, Jim, and the whole crew. How do you feel like they progressed that through season two and dealt with that?
I remember feeling like, oh, please don't put Sloane into that triangle. Don't do it. There's too much math going on that she's got to figure out. Come on, guys. I was really not wanting to get in the middle of a love triangle. But that's because I just love spewing out Sorkin dialogue about finance and being able to have that big torch to carry. But how it ended up evolving, which I really liked, was that it made everybody deal with it as adults, which is relationships break up, and now instead of just dealing with the breakup of it, which was a lot of this season one was just people holding on and the breakup is happening and we all know it's going to happen, but it was just the breakdown of it. This time it just kind of got right to the fact that like everybody, we're all adults, this isn't working out, but let's all still, communicate and work together. And so at least I was happy that like it wasn't this kind of weird tug of war that I really didn't want to get into. Personally, I didn't want to have to play one of those, because those things that can be hard, love triangles that are just like never ending. I'm glad that it didn't keep going on through season two.
Well, another thing about season two that they continued for you is you get to continue to be the comic relief in a lot of scenes, which I really like. Particularly one from this past year I liked was, well, anytime you get to tag along with other people that are on missions, I like that a lot.
Oh, the one you're talking about with me and Dev Patel?
Yes. When you go out to find or to convince the girl to give up the name.
Yeah, I love working with Dev, and it's funny because I didn't even know this, but I'd been told that there was a Sleal internet kind of following of like Sloane and Neil, of people really liking. And I just felt like Sleal sounded like a really like a sad STD that you're like, oh, you got Sleal? That's too bad. Next time, wrap it up. But I love working with Deb, and I love doing it. I remember the milkshake part where I was, slurping. I think that came from, I haven't confirmed it, but it was right around the time he would have been writing the episode was when I had to make a run to In-N-Out, and I had my chocolate milkshake, and I was trying to talk to Sorkin, and I just kept, like I had something really important to say to him, but it was just so good that I was competing with talking to my boss or drinking the milkshake, and I think he was looking at me a lot of times like, I can't believe you're really choosing your milkshake over like communicating like an adult right now. And it was just so good. If you've ever had an In-N-Out milkshake, you'd know. And then later on the next episode, I thought, and then I remember when I left, I thought, was I being really distracting with that milk when I was talking to him? No, I'm sure it wasn't. I'm sure I handled myself appropriately. And then later on when I read the script, I realized, oh, that left a mark with him. I clearly was acting like a child. And he used it against me in the script.
Well, in the newsroom, your character, perhaps more so than any of the others, is has a real comic relief role, and Sorkin did this, I think, with CJ on The West Wing. Has this, ability to play the sort of quirky comedy sort of rhythms, but also you see the sort of emotional side of Sloane, like when the nude pictures came out of her, and she had to sort of process that. I guess, like, what sort of beats do you prefer? Do you prefer the comedic beats? Do you prefer the emotional beats? And how do you think they play together?
That's a great question, because a lot of times it's like, do you prefer comedy to do a comedy? Do you prefer to do drama? And the reality is, it's more like, do you prefer to do those comedy beats, or is it the dramatic beats? And anytime you see a comedic beat, I see it as a challenge. Can you make people laugh? And when I'm performing on set, I'm always looking at, if you can make the camera guys laugh, if I can make the grip laugh, if I can make the guy from craft service laugh, then that's a good thing because they've been there all day long seeing everything. So I really enjoy that part of it. But when it came to the episode with Sloane and her ex-boyfriend betraying her, I get really excited for those opportunities because I love, I think a lot of times, you see a lot of, actors who they can't wait to be emotional. They can't wait to just have a scene where they're just screaming or crying or yelling, and they get to, and I live for those moments that I can pull back and actually, my choice is always to hold it back as much as I can, and to try not to cry, and to try not to scream, and to restrain a lot, and so I get really excited when I get those kind of scenes, and also it's still, I'm still aware that that I'm very lucky to be in this position, and that it does look like I won some kind of supermarket raffle. Like I just they pulled out a number, and I'm like, yeah, that's my ticket, and now I'm on this show. So when I get the stuff that I've been able to get, and that Sorkin's given me, I know how lucky I am, and I'm very thankful that he trusts me with that kind of dialogue and with that weight. So when I get those, I love the comedy stuff. It's exciting and fun to do, and you want to make people laugh. But personally, when he gives me the opportunity to do those really dramatic moments, I get really excited.
Well, speaking of drama, that one of the underlying themes of this whole season was that Genoa plot that had all of you involved, and it went back and forth in time. And particularly, I wanted to ask you about, I think one of the best episodes of TV I've seen all of this past season on any show was the Red Team 3 episode. So tell me a little bit about your thoughts on the plot from this past season, and especially that episode.
Honestly, I don't know. I don't know what everybody else is telling you, if you've talked with other people from our show, but I'll tell you honestly, there's so many layers to it that oftentimes I was like, what's happening? Wait, I'm trying to follow. I remember sitting there with Jeff Daniels, Emily Mortimer, and Sam Waterston, and I'm like, did you guys get the script? And they're like, yeah. I'm like, can I ask 20 to 30 questions, because I don't know. Can somebody tell me? Because I don't want to look like the dummy who doesn't know, so I'm going to ask you guys. And we would all just kind of talk it out together, and it was one of those things where I'm like, I know there's something that's so fascinating going on, and it's so intricate, and it was based on it was something that really happened at CNN. It was back in '98 or something, when they had gone out and said that the American military was using sarin gas, and it turned out to not be a true story. So Sorkin had heard about that. It was called Tailwinds, and Sorkin had heard about that and decided to make our own version of that. And what I loved about it, and I think what was really great, was that we in the newsroom, we were the ones messing up. So it was all about this, how we were messing up, and our struggle, and how do we get out of that, and how do we get into it. But what I found the most fascinating was the response from so many people, and I was traveling at the time, and I was away, so I actually didn't get to see the episodes. I had to watch them later on, and so I would just hear the response from people and how much they were responding to that storyline, and Red Team 3 especially, and that was exciting that people loved it so much, and I was really happy, and I was happy for Sorkin that people were responding like that.
You say it was a pretty complicated storyline, a lot of different layers. Sorkin didn't have his own red team that he had to run it by before making sure it made sense for the plot.
No, it made sense. It's just,
yeah.
It makes sense. Sometimes you just don't. Sometimes it is when you're somebody like Sorkin, when he writes in a way. Have either of you ever read a Sorkin script? Have you ever got your hands on an actual script of his?
I've got the West Wing script book here, so I've had a bit of a read through them.
So if you read a script, you'll see that he writes it as as a producer as well. So it's every like you know it has like the fade in, fade out. This song comes in, and exactly at this moment, it's not just like a little bit of what they think it might be. It's exactly, and you can feel it as you're reading it. And so with this, it was so complicated, and you're trying to remember because there's a lot of flashbacks and forwards, and it was one of those things where I just knew I had to wait to watch it on TV with everybody else, and he knew what he was doing. I I just had to know what Sloane was doing, and the beauty of my character this season with this really difficult storyline was that I wasn't supposed to know until I came in as part of the red team, but that it was the response that people had on the show this year, I think, is a testament to how brilliant Sorkin is, because he saw this whole thing unfolding. He knew exactly what he wanted to do and how he wanted to tell it, and people responded.
Coming off of last year's, off of the first season, Jane Fonda and Jeff Daniels got nominated at the Emmys. I thought the show would do even better than that, and maybe it will here at the Globes and SAG Awards coming up soon. But what was your response when Jeff Daniels beat people like Bryan Cranston and Damian Lewis and Kevin Spacey and all those other guys?
I was in Seattle shooting a documentary series, and I was watching the Emmys live from my hotel room with my best friend, and I turned to her and I said, she was like, "Do you think Jeff's going to win?" I said, "No, I don't. I mean, he deserves to win, but Bryan Cranston's last year in Breaking Bad, everyone's talking about, House of Cards, and then there's John Hamm, who is, people think he might sneak in, but, and she's like, well, how does it work?" And I said, well, for the Emmys, you submit one episode, and it's a really competitive. I mean, TV is. I mean, everybody talks. I'm doing a movie right now with Johnny Depp, and we were talking about just today. He was like, TV's where it's at. He said he hasn't watched a new movie in years. It's TV. We have all these amazing creators on TV, and I said it's so difficult. And I know that it's got to be. I mean, I don't know what Jeff Daniels submitted for his one episode, but it's got to be that first pilot, episode with that amazing opener. And I said, but that's, I mean, she was like, well, that's amazing. How could he not? And as she was saying that, like, how could he not? We heard Jeff Daniels, and I screamed. True story. I screamed so loud that we got a call from the reception. They said that there's been a distress call from the room next door saying he's screaming so loud that we think they're in trouble. So they called, and I was like, no, it's just it. And then I was just screaming, and it was so exciting. And I have this picture on my phone that I have of Jeff. Maybe I can find it and show you. Jeff, like, with his with his hands, and he's holding the Emmy up, and it's so sweet because Jeff is such an amazing actor, and he is the captain of our show, and it's really tough, and he said that he's never won an award before, and what I loved about that as just somebody who's trudged her way to get to any place. I mean, it wasn't that long ago I was like crossing my fingers for that Taco Bell commercial. I was like, oh, if I get that national Taco Bell commercial and the residuals, my life would be so different. And so to see that he could be so excited and not be cool about it, that he was just so happy, it was just like, it was the most exciting feeling. And I think, when it happened, people were surprised, but they were surprised because of how stiff the competition was, but nobody felt that it was undeserved. And
I think when you return for season 3, he'll make all of you refer to him as Emmy winner Jeff Daniels.
He already sent out an email saying that, and we're not allowed to make eye contact.
Oh.
And he wants room temperature water everywhere, and it has to be Fiji. And we have to have those little fancy silver square coaster things that they have at restaurants for the water too. But he won an Emmy, none of us did, so we have to do it.
All right. So we've got Olivia. Something that I found really interesting with the position you're in on the show is that you used to do the Daily Show with Jon Stewart, which is another sort of fictionalized news show, but a completely different one. And what I find particularly interesting, though, is both the Newsroom and the Daily Show deal with the real news in the way they portray, in what they actually deal with on the news. and the time frames overlap. The newsroom set in like a couple of years ago, the same time that you're on the Daily Show. So
Right.
have there been any stories that the newsrooms approached that you also approached when you're in the Daily Show
Oh,
team? And how did they approach these issues sort of differently?
I never thought about that. You're right. The same time that I'm on the newsroom, I would technically have been on the Daily Show at the same time. I have to think back and think about what the stories we covered, because I don't really, we didn't do, like, yeah, I have to think back to all the different Daily Show stuff I did and how much, yeah, no, I don't know. You know, the best thing about being able to, you know, I went to the Daily Show where I pretended to be a fake reporter, and then I went to the newsroom where I pretended to be a real reporter. And my mother is just so happy that I'm using my journalism degree in some way. She's like so happy that she's like, I told you, you go to school, it helped you. No one can ever take that away. And I was like, okay, Mom, I was just doing it to make you happy, and because journalism was, you know, was the only thing that I thought was interesting in school. And and it's one of those things where I'm happy my Asian mother was really forceful about me going to college. But I need to look back on my. I'll get back to you on my. That's an interesting note. I've never thought about that.
I want to give you some questions from the chat room if you don't mind.
Yeah, I would love to.
Double Six says, well, we know this answer, but are you still in London, and were you able to have a Thanksgiving before leaving for London?
Double Six is from New York. I know a lot of my fan base. They've been with me from like from the very, very, very beginning, and I'm very appreciative and very thankful, because without them, like, you know, they're the people who make your dreams come true. So, what up, Double Six? I'm in London. I had Thanksgiving dinner at a friend's house out here. I'm American, so I overstuffed my plate, and all these other British people were like, I'm not even exaggerating, they were looking at me, and they would make comments like, you're hungry, which I think is the most rude thing that anybody can say. I hate when people comment on what I'm eating. People do that a lot. I don't know. I think it's because I do overpack my plate and I eat it all, and people are like, someone's hungry, or when the plate's clean and they go, so, didn't like it, huh? And I'm like, leave me alone. So I had a Thanksgiving dinner where I felt really insecure the entire night. But it didn't stop me from eating everything.
Another one here, Jorge Z, I think is how you would say this.
It's also from New York. It's Jorge_Z, am I right?
That's right. Which news story would you like for Sloan to cover if they're on the third season of the Newsroom?
I would love Sloan to cover what's going on with Snowden, and I would love to hear Sorkin's take. And I've actually never talked to him, and I would love to talk to him, and I actually would love to talk to Jon Stewart also, and ask them what they think about what's gone down with the administration and all of the things that have come about and what we found out with everything that Snowden has done. You know, the thing about Sloan that I love so much is that she is fiercely loyal, and she has, you know, she has a moral compass that is always right on, and something like this, I think, would, you know, it would be interesting to see what Sorkin thinks Sloan would feel about this, and I would love for her to find a way to, you know, and then you can talk about the financial, you know, all the financial, you know, the downfall that comes with, the financial downfall that comes with, you know, all the things that Snowden has done, and also the things that the administration has done that Snowden uncovered.
Well, if he likes TV so much, I see Sloan interviewing Johnny Depp somewhere in the third season.
Wow, that would be so fun. I would love for Johnny to come on. I think he would love it. That'd be exciting. He's a big fan of the Newsroom, and that was very exciting to hear. I was able to come all the way. I had to go to. I went to New York. He watched the first season, and he's been trying to watch the second season. He couldn't find it anywhere, so I was able to get some people to burn me the whole second season, and I held onto it so tightly because I just knew that like HBO would just take my family and my friends and hold them for ransom until I got them back. So I was able to bring them here to Johnny, and I would be fun to have him on the show.
Matt, did you have one final question?
Yeah, I guess going, I guess maybe back to the newsroom, and like with Sorkin, there's a real rhythm to the way he writes. I remember that I remember there's a West Wing episode where there's a great line about how words are like music, and I guess does the Sorkin language and rhythms, does that get easier as you do more of it? Like, was season 2 easier than season 1 in sort of delivering those lines and getting used to that language?
I think what I have found is that whenever any actor ever thinks it's getting easy, that's when complacency sits in, and that's when they become boring, and that's when they become predictable. The Sorkin dialogue is something that, you know, one of my best guy friends is an amazing actor named Tim Rock, and he helps me break down every single script, and in the beginning he helped me break it down and would point those things out. And it's an interesting thing because I think you hear it, you appreciate it, but not everyone can really pinpoint it, and it's a very difficult thing. For example, it's not just the melody. It's not just because somebody said to me once, another actress that I know, she's like, "Oh, Sorkin's really easy because as long as you can remember and talk fast, you're good." Like, no, it's not. It's not just about speaking fast and finding your melody. For example, in one episode from season 1 where Sloane is going up to Mackenzie and trying to get her to talk about the debt ceiling, and she's like, "Why? Like, why do we have to do it now?" And Sloane's like, "We have to do it. We have to do it. We have to do it now." She's like, "Why?" And then she says, "To give time for the people to call their congressman and say, if you fuck with the full faith and credit of the U.S. Treasury, you're fired. To give time for the people to jam the phone lines of the district office. To give the people time to say, I'm a fiscal conservative, and you got to put the pin back in the grenade right now. That's why." My friend Tim, he's like, "Do you see this?" And he circled it. Time. To give time. To give time. To give time. He's like, that's the rhythm. It's not the other stuff in it. It's like, that's what we're trying to hit, is that and it's not just the melody. And I think sometimes people get caught up when they think, oh, that's the key. If you just find the melody, if you just talk fast. The key is to find out, what is Sorkin trying to say? What is he trying to say? The whole speech of that Sloane was trying to say was, we all deserve a little bit of time to know what the fuck is happening in our life so that we can stand up and say, hey, I don't want to be a part of this. And so all of that stuff is just to say time. And so to hit that, and that became my, like, I knew how to hit it, and I knew how to, like, ramp up because of that. But when I started into the second season, I remember feeling like, oh yeah, I got this now. And as soon as I started going through it, I knew I didn't. And that's what, you have to work on it so hard and put everything you have into it and never become complacent. And it's also really important to just keep your head down and say thank you as much as possible and try to be there for your other castmates, because this shit is hard.
Well, listen, thank you so much for joining us again. It's great to see you again, and hope you have a terrific holiday season and finish shooting that film in London.
Thank you so much. Thank you guys for seeing me and taking time out of your schedules.